What is going on? Carter here with Edged Mindset. Thank you for joining me today. We're going to be talking about a knife today. Of course, what else would we be talking about? We've got a black on black theme here. Black knife, black mat, black hands. Yes, baby, this is going to be cool. We're looking at a kind of tactical, modernized, traditional knife here. This is the Jack Wolf Knives After Hour Jack. It was sent in to me by my buddy Ian. If you want to check out his information, I should have, if I remembered, posted a link to his Instagram down below. Thank you so much, Ian, for sending knives for me to check out on the channel and giving me the opportunity to make content on stuff that maybe I otherwise wouldn't have purchased. So, what is Jack Wolf Knives, in case you don't know? Jack Wolf Knives, let me grab the beautiful packaging here with the sexy cartoon lady and the wolf in a robe here with some sort of drink. After Hours Jack. So Jack Wolf Knives have basically taken traditional knife patterns and essences and modernized them, right? So they've taken something like this, which is a traditional knife. This is a slip joint, so it does not lock. Now, normally this would be made out of carbon steel, and then you've got brass or silver bolsters and natural scales, things like that. Jack Wolf Knives, in their genius, realized there might be a market to take this knife and modernize it. Use modern steels with modern heat treats, modern materials in the handle, tight tolerances, torque screw construction. Now, originally what they did is everything was still a traditional slip joint. They just upped all the materials and the build quality. These are all made overseas, by the way, in China, in case you were wondering. But then they said, well, hey, what if we kick it up another notch and take a traditional slip joint style knife and pattern and put it on a frame lock with a pocket clip, turning it into a true modern knife. And that's what they did here with the After Hours Jack. So let's do some specs before I forget, because I do have a tendency to do that. In case you were wondering what sort of size you're looking at, it's really a good EDC size here. 3¼ inch blade, 7¼ inches overall, essentially. Let's get a weight on here. My handy dandy. I've had this thing for like a decade and a half. Like at this point, 3.2 ounces. At this point, I don't think I even want to try to replace this because it's such a legacy institution on this channel here, unless it actually breaks. Let's take a look at this traditional knife, 2.8 ounces. So it is heavier than this guy here. However, I think it's bigger, right? I think it is quite a bit bigger. So yeah, you definitely get a lot more blade and a lot more handle with the After Hours Jack compared to this traditional knife. Not that this is the best comparison for this anyways. Let's do paramilitary 2. Let's do pivot to pivot. You can see the paramilitary 2 is quite a bit bigger. So if you're looking for something a little smaller and easier to carry, there you go. Let's do, I don't know, the Endura here. Yep. Endura is way bigger. Just because I had it here, you know, I've got these. Ooh, let's do MSI. Oh, yeah, look at that. It's MSI is way bigger than the After Hours Jack. And, you know, I don't know. What else do we got here? We'll do the Remet Rhino, which is actually pretty comparable, at least in overall length. So pretty dang close. But it's not just overall length when you're looking at this thing. It is very, very slim. You can see the slim profile here. Reasonably thin in the handle, very comfortable, fits in the hand very well. But let's start at the blade here. This one is an S90V. I think this is a PVD coating. It looks like PVD, not DLC, which would make sense for the price point. You know, DLC is kind of expensive, and I wouldn't really expect DLC to appear on a knife like this, but I could be wrong. I've been known to be wrong in the past. Wharncliffe blade, hollow ground, very, very thin. Let's see. You can, I don't know if it's coming through, but you can hear it tinging when you run your finger across that blade there because it is so thin. Very, very popular now to have thin behind the edge, slicey knives. And this is no exception. Decently robust tip though still. I don't know if you can really see that. I mean, it's not as thin as I kind of expected it to be, but delicate nonetheless. You don't want to do any heavy duty prying with this. It's got a cool like swedge up on this hump on the top here, which is cool. You got a fuller running down the front of the spine on both sides. That'll be important for later when we're talking about deployment methods. Sharpening choil right there. I love me a sharpening choil. Just makes it so much easier and clean to sharpen this bad boy. But if you're using a captured sharpening system, you'll have to have a little bit of finesse because there's really no flat to clamp onto. So you'll have to figure that out. It's really a full grind all the way to the top. I almost said full flat grind, but it's not a flat grind. It's a hollow grind. But there's no real flat to kind of clamp onto. So you just got to make sure and keep it so that it's not off kilter and it'll mess up your grinds here. By the way, secondary bevel is perfection. Look how even that is and straight that is. Thing of beauty right there. Got some jimping on the back that's reasonably effective, except for when you get down here, because you can see how it kind of just sits flush with the scales there. So you can, if you press in it, you feel it, right? Because like the meaty part of your finger kind of presses in there, but it's just not that great compared to this little bit right there. Except you just, it's got such little runway on that jimping. I would have liked to have seen this jimping run down to maybe about there so that you could get a full thumb on the spine here and feel that jimping, but not that big of a deal. Running on bearings, this thing has 2 different deployment methods, or maybe 3. Yep, you've got thumb, and it surprisingly thumbs well. I wouldn't have thought so. When I first saw this, I thought it was front flipper only. And it's got a very small front flipper, so I'm like, this is not going to be easy to deploy. But something about where this fuller is, you can actually reverse flick and thumb flick this thing. Not too bad. It's not 100% accurate. I'll miss it sometimes just because I just don't quite get in there good enough. But it works pretty well. Now, the front flipper takes a little getting used to, because you just don't have much leverage. You can see how it barely sticks up right there. So you got to kind of really get on that edge, kind of press in towards the pivot to get some pressure, and then kind of move your thumb back. And even describing that, I still kind of messed it up. So not the easiest to deploy, but with how clean it makes it look, I think it's a fair trade-off. It's one of those knives where if you carry this thing frequently, you're going to get really good at deploying it in all its different methods. First time you pick it up, you might fumble a little bit like I did right there. Full titanium scales. You've got kind of faux bolsters here with the milling, torque screw construction, fully enclosed with a full running back spacer, which is kind of nice. Kind of mimics the back spring, of a traditional slip joint. So that's kind of cool. Titanium milled pocket clip right there. Great retention. Goes in and out of the pocket very well. You might get a little bit of bunching with how it kind of bumps up against this relief cut right there, but I haven't noticed too many issues with that, so not a big deal. Reasonably deep carry, you're looking at about there, and there's just not much profile. So not only is it pretty deep carry, it's very inconspicuous with what is sticking out. There's no weird shiny screws or back spacers, or not back spacers, glass breakers or anything that would kind of signify, hey, I got a knife in my pocket. Especially this one, which is kind of this blacked out stealth version. It's really kind of pretty minimalistic in its form and the way it carries. There is one thing I did want to talk about, though, that I wish would improve, and that is this relief cut right here. I'm glad they attempted to do some chamfering in there to allow your thumb to get in there, but I think they could have done way more. Even if it was just on, I know you've got the lock bar insert there, so you may not have enough real estate to do a whole lot more on the lock side, but at least on the non-locking side, I would like to have seen kind of more space there, because it is kind of difficult to get your thumb in there. At least my thumbs, it feels a little cramped trying to unlock this thing, and I think they could have potentially cleared up some more space inside there so that you didn't have that issue. But really, that's the only complaint. The deployment methods, yeah, it's not the easiest, but it also, the trade-off is you have a really clean, slick look with nothing that's gonna, get caught on your pants or anything like that. Everything else is great. Action's great. Size is great for EDC. I love the modernization of the traditional slip joint look. Really just that minor gripe with the relief cut on the lock bar there is the only thing I can really kind of think of. Everything else, it's a good knife. If this is what you're looking for, if you want a modernized, pocketable, carryable with a clip, frame lock version of a traditional knife that's made overseas, this is your jam. This is the one you probably want to look into picking up. I would assume that they've got a bevy of different finishes. I really like their satin finishes on their blades because they've got the nice grind lines showing through and they just look really, really slick. But this one's kind of cool too with the fully blacked, murdered out look that it has. It's kind of an interesting take on it. So comment down below, is the after hours jack something that you would ever consider picking up? I want to hear from you guys. Until next video, take care. I'm out.